Hi, are you an author in the middle of self-publishing your next book? Somewhere along the process, you've probably heard about creating an audiobook. You've been encouraged to make an audiobook. You know friends who've made the investment in creating an audiobook, but you can't bring yourself to get started because getting into the technical weeds just seems too daunting. But what if we could take that all away? What if we could remove 90% of the technical barriers, so all you would have to do is show up to the microphone and record? Or maybe you don't want to record your own audiobook. That's totally fine too. We have an experienced team of professional narrators that would love to audition for your audiobook. Our Done For You service guarantees that you will have a professionally produced audiobook ready for commercial release. If you're ready to get started today, please click the link below and schedule a free call. We can't wait to hear from you and to get started on your project.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement. I am your host, author Stephen Urias, along with my host, my best friend, my publisher, Susan Gabriel. Susan, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Who is clinging with the bling, bling, bling? Is that you? Are you getting notifications there?
Yeah, let me see if I can
somebody's
turn it
excited to talk to you. They know you're live, and they're
on.
like, hey,
Yeah,
hey, hey,
yeah,
hey.
yeah. Hey, anybody who's out there who's notifying me, stop. Everybody hears the dings.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm
As always, we
today,
are.
I guess.
It's all good. As always, we're sponsored by Soul Sunshine. If you are an inspiring, want to be an author out there, be sure to visit us at soulsunshine.com, where we can help you through your entire journey to go from idea to publication. It's been a good week, Susan. It's been a very good week. Lots of big ideas coming out. Lots of new people we've been introduced to. We published a new book. It's been an exciting week. I can't believe it's Sunday already.
I know. We've published a book every week for the last 3 weeks.
I know, because we're kicking booty. Family show. Sorry, guys out there.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. We're already rolling in with the comments, man. Really. The person who is admitting to it is saying it was their fault. Dan, chill, dude. Chill. Man. We're live on air.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Right on.
Thank you for watching the show, Dan.
Definitely. Always love having you here, brother. Always love having you here. So today we have a very cool guest. We said we published a book this week. Well, that book is by Michael Farley. The name of the book is The God Who Sees, A Journey Less Traveled. It is a memoir. It is passionate. It is powerful. So without further ado, let's bring him to the stage. Michael!
Is this a stage?
It absolutely is a stage.
All right. Do you want me to dance or what? Sing?
Well, according to Shakespeare, all the world's a stage, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
That's kind of a little of a spark right there. Digital Shakespeare, man. I'm feeling something bubbling there.
At least Michael is used to being, let's say, in front of a camera.
Definitely.
In front of an audience. Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Michael. Why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and let us know more about you?
Well, like a lot of you, I was born at a very early age. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Back in the day, we lived in Indianapolis, and from there, at an early age, we moved out to California. And that's where we hung our hat for a long, long time. I met my wife there. We did our education there. But beyond that, we've moved to lots and lots of different states. Maybe it's my music, maybe it's the products, maybe it's whatever reason. We've been movers and shakers for 40 or 50 years. But establishing ourselves out there, at a young age, I met my wife, and She was 12 and I was 14. That's something we'll talk about probably because it's in the autobiography. And we did not have any measure of faith or faithfulness or an allusion to faith in our upbringing or our life. Not at all. I'd never entered the shadows of a church door. But we did have a very disruptive and unsettling beginnings. So from early on, when my father told me that I was a mistake, that's sort of the foundation or the bedrock that I began to grow myself from. And with no God and no allusion to faith, it became pretty difficult to even consider that life was worth living. So that's all changed, I got to tell you. But the early beginnings and then on through the journey, the God who sees definitely oversaw, definitely covered us, as in Psalm, I think it's 91, with his wings, and gently, like a mother hen, nudged us along to the places where we would eventually go and do the things that we would do, be the people that we would be. And in the fullness of time, well, I mean, it's hard to summarize 50 years, but I think you probably have some questions, and that will help the listener, better identify who's being interviewed here and why it's important that this book was written.
Well, let me start out with asking you one question, because I've read your book. Your childhood reads like something out of a movie. So what was the moment you realized you needed to write it down?
Well, the childhood aspect of this drama, this true story, was difficult. And it's like being pushed out of an airplane or something, into the unknown. Where are you going to land and who's going to be with you and will you be saved? So the early years were pretty tragic. And the way I saw my father treat my mother, we were often hiding. We were often wondering if we were next. And so the difficulty of a childhood like that, where you're uncertain and you're scared and you wonder if there's going to be a tomorrow. And we
have a question related to that that's from one of our viewers. And he said he's read the book too. He said one of the most gut-punching lines in your book is when your father said you were a mistake. How did that moment shape you, and how did God begin to unshape the lie?
The gift of music was miraculous. My mother put a guitar in my hand at an early age, and I didn't know how to play the thing. I didn't know what one was. My friends and I, we would play on coat hangers and broomsticks, listening to the Beach Boys and the Beatles. But it was breathing, it was birthing something in us. And that night in 1967 or whenever, 1964 or 5, when the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show, Mom let us stay up late, and I watched that, and something about it changed my perspective on life. Something about it said, this is the life for you, to play and to enjoy music and to maybe even travel and maybe to go deeper into this life and this thing called music. Mm-hmm. So that's how I came out of the mire. But from abuse, abandonment, molestation, and any other thing that took place in a young person's life, or witnessing my father abused my mother in every way. Was well, one counselor told me one time, he says, Michael, of the men that I've counseled that have gone through what you have, they're in prison for a long, long time. Of the women that I've counseled that have gone through what you have, they'll never be the same. And he said, here you are living in Santa Barbara. You lead worship at a church of 3,500. You have a thriving business, and you love your wife and kids with all of your heart. And he said, maybe you should be counseling me. So, that was pretty funny. But it's just, it's our journey. And
speaking of your journey,
yeah,
and speaking of your music, there has been times where you have become almost famous. So how have you become almost famous?
Well, that sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
Oh, it is a movie. It absolutely is a movie.
These are the early days, so it's worth, I think it's a good place to ask that question. But in my early days, I was so self-conscious and self-aware and had such a low self-esteem that I would hide myself away for 6 to 8 hours a day in the back room, just working till my fingers would bleed. And from there, I joined a band. One of the bands, we actually played the Hollywood Bowl, which I think that was kind of a legacy, which, I mean, I've got pictures of that in the book.
Nice.
But beyond that, we were being chauffeured around Hollywood in stretch limousines. Executive producers had sought us out. And I thought, wow, this is good. I guess we're going somewhere with this. And they said, can we come to your rehearsal on Wednesday? And we, sure, yeah, this is great. They took us to the tall building, CBS or whatever it was in the day, and showed us gold records. And they says, we want you to know that this is a good likelihood that this is your future. So we had a lot of promise, and we were riding on this hope because since we were children, this was our dream. We were practicing on Tuesday night, the night before the executive producers were coming, and I had come to faith in Jesus 2 months prior. Now, this is one of those most audacious things that ever happened in my life. We were singing it. Music, that's all we're living for. It's like taking a skeleton key to open all the doors. I stopped the song midstream, and I said to the guys, can somebody sing my harmony part? And someone said, well, it sounds pretty good. Why don't you just keep on singing? I said, I can't. Something's stirring deep in my heart. Music, that's all we're living for? It's not all I'm living for. If somebody could take my part, I would be happy. And then someone blurted out, if this Jesus thing means so much to you, why don't you just quit? Now, I don't think he was being serious, but it registered deep within because I remember the Lord had said, you shall have no other gods before me, that he would be the only one. And you love one and despise the other, or despise one and love the other. I was loving my music more than I was loving this relationship with Jesus. So I might have been crazy, but the God who sees saw. That night I got home and I got on the phone. I called everybody in the band and I said, I've loved this journey. I love who you are and who we are together, but I quit. Oh my gosh. Not only that, the next day I put all my instruments up for sale.
Wow.
I said, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Wow. And you were how old at this point?
I was 18 or 19, probably 19 or 18.
Wow.
Just a young man.
Wow.
But the incredible thing about that was redemptive was that, that passage that says, I have for you a future and a hope in Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that passage, but it turned out that 2 weeks later, I would get a call from an organization called Young American Showcase. Young American Showcase. They were an organization that put together bands that traveled all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me to my next question. So you got a call from Lowell Lytle, right?
Yeah, Lowell Lytle and Lance Hebert, the music director. They were both on the phone. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what Young American Showcase was, and the bands that they put together across the country that would play rock and roll and look like Hendrix or Cream or you name it, Grand Funk. And then at the end of every show, we would give the gospel. But anyway, I flew to Florida because these two guys called me. They said, "It's on your dime. You think you can make it? You think you can cut it? Great, fly on out." So I did. I flew out to Florida, borrowed a guitar, and got on stage. And they said, "Mark, play bass." No, Mark, play drums. Larry, play bass. Now there was a trio of us up there, guys I'd never met in my life. Now play. We were at Sarasota College. In the round there, out in the theater, were probably 25 or 30 guys, and the whole organization, other musicians, the CEO, the music director, the Lowell. And when I started playing the blues, bending those strings practically off the fretboard, I guess the Lord was playing through me because when I opened my eyes and glanced out over the auditorium, thumbs went up all over the place. Eyes were as big as half dollars. And they said, "You're hired, young man. You're hired." So
Nice.
From that point, we shared the gospel with over 1 million people. And some of those people I'm still in touch with to this day.
I want to switch gears here a little bit.
Okay.
I know that you've had this incredible journey, this incredible experiences that happened to you, and they've brought you to things that, all around the world, and they've written your book, but there's also tragedy in your life. And I know that with tragedy, that overcoming it can be incredibly powerful and can be incredibly lifting for people. Let's talk about your son and how his choices affected you.
Okay, that's as we were living there in Santa Barbara, our youngest son, Micah, was troubled. I mean, if there were a wrinkle in his sock, he would go stir crazy. If a water got on him, he didn't know how to handle it. And so we thought, this is odd. It's never happened with the other kids. So from that point, he couldn't remain in this school or that school or this school or that school. And now we're seeing doctors, we're seeing counselors, we're seeing psychologists and whatever else we could do to help our 1 second. The dog knows how to open the door.
Nice.
And so those years in Santa Barbara were turmoil and tragedy and heartbreak. But it got worse when we went to Oregon. And I think that's jumping the gun because so much happened in Santa Barbara that I don't want to leave there yet.
Yeah.
But all the while, this undercurrent of our son and his actions and his lifestyle and his life habits became worse and worse and worse until, one night, 3 a.m, we had bouncers, I don't know what you call them. They come in from a rehab facility and grab him and pull him and take him into a van that had bars on the windows. And he was wrestling like a wild fish, but we didn't know what else to do. He was, growing marijuana on the neighbor's property. He was now doing drugs. And so let that linger. Let those thoughts linger because they didn't stop. And also, God didn't stop. we, in the 1980s, we went to Bible college. I went to Bible college at Grace Community Church, Logos Bible Institute. Now it's called the Master's College over there at John MacArthur's. And that's where our kids were young. That's where we were becoming us, Kathy and I. We got married in 1975. So that was a landmark for us. And this September, that'll be 50 years. And 58 years together since we got together when she was 12 and I was 14. And we just never let go. And that's the other thing, having 4 kids. And never, ever, ever did they hear us raise our voices or argue or do alcohol or drugs or anything. Worship music playing all the time. So it just makes you wonder, why would things go south for any of our kids? Why wouldn't our example of life in Christ transfer? So in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara years and Micah, that was preceded by our life in community in the state of Washington. And so I think that has a part to play before the Micah story.
We can go back because you were introduced to somebody by the name of Steve Lamb.
Yeah, that's a good place to put my friend in. I was in that band called Free Fair from Showcase, and we were leading people to Jesus. A good guy named Ross Cooper, I led him to Jesus. And Steve Lamb, his daughter found me on Facebook, and she says, "Are you the Michael Farley that knows Steve Lamb?" "Yes, ma'am." "Well, Steve would like to talk to you." Steve called me, and he says, "Michael, you were in that band, and you shared Jesus with me. And I accepted Jesus. I had been a good Catholic all my life, but I didn't know Jesus." He says, "I just want to thank you. For the last 25 years, I've been a pastor, and my kids are missionaries in Thailand." He says, "I don't know where we would be if you hadn't taken that step of boldness to lead us to Jesus." So that's who Steve Lamb is, but that's one story of many. But that one played out to what I would call the nth degree, where it bore fruit, and it continues to do so to this day. That's what we want to see, and that's the objective. So coming off of the road, we got into that Bible college, and the Bible college, we met some folks that had some pretty cool ideas. You ever heard of Keith Green? Mm-hmm. Keith Green was a musician back in the day, a Christian musician that was making waves all over the world. His music is remembered to this day. Mm-hmm. One of my wife's favorite artists. Well, they had established a communal living environment called Last Days Ministries. Mm-hmm. Right. He lived up there where we did at that time, so we would, as a band, go over to his Bible study and or the concerts that he would perform. He practically bought up the whole block of houses there at Sherman Oaks or something like that. And just incredible success in every way. And they eventually started a communal living situation in Texas. So great. Now we're in this Bible study situation. We're influenced by him. And that was a thing in the 70s, communal living, secular and Christian. So we wanted to do that too. I mean, I'm not a visionary. I'm not an idea guy when it comes to lifestyle or life change or radical living. But there were some guys that we connected with at the church who were very much visionaries, good people. And they shared that vision with me and Kathy. And we go, well, that sounds pretty rosy. Wow, imagine Acts chapter 2, all things in common, and working with one another, for one another, and living by the scriptures, worshiping, house to house Bible studies and prayer and worship. And it sounded like, wow, I mean, we weren't disillusioned with the church as it was. I mean, Kathy and I weren't. We didn't want to change anything or rock any boats, but these guys had visions that went beyond the traditional church structure.
I believe you called it a potential cult, is what your words for it.
Well, it did become bad. As you'll see in this book, there's a chapter on, 2 chapters probably, on the communal living. Incredible. These guys were so talented. We eventually moved from Southern California to Washington State. We were there at the foot of Mount Rainier in Eatonville, and 20 of us moved in, and they built another little house over here, and we were doing construction by day, and I was hating it, by the way. You get out there in 30-degree weather, 33-degree weather, and it doesn't snow, but it rains down your back as you're putting up the awning and the eaves and roofing. And I'll tell you what, my fingers weren't made for that, and neither was my brain. But they said, no, man, you got to put on a belt. And so it went from bad to worse. I just hated it. I couldn't stand it because it wasn't my giftings. It wasn't my calling. It wasn't my skill set. But we eventually left some folks over in Eatonville, and the rest of us went over to Okanagan on the East Coast near Canada, the border of Canada. Mm-hmm. And that's where we would establish our final resting place. The gardens, acres and acres of gardens. By the way, everything was moon dust from that volcano that had happened a few years earlier. Well, remember that volcano?
Mount St. Helens?
Yeah. So that's where we were, and building this 3-story complex out of timber from Canada, mortise and tenon joints, dovetailed, no nails whatsoever, just banging this thing out. These beams were that big around, and these guys were so skilled. We hoisted a 500-gallon milk tank up to the 3rd story, and we'd have thermal siphon heat. You'd have your potbelly stove down here. The other stove next to it had filled with wood and fed with wood, and that heated the water. It went up through the tubes 3 stories up or 2 stories up, and that we'd have water to wash our dishes with or take a shower. Incredible. We'd go to the lake and cut out ice blocks so that the root cellar would hold the vegetation, which would last through the summer. Mm-hmm. It was incredibly complex. It was incredibly difficult. I'd be in the forest each day with a tractor and a chainsaw by myself, cutting down trees so that we could make log cabins. And Kathy has learned to use a draw knife, where you take the knife, both blades, and you take off the, de-skin. What do you call it?
Gotcha. When you're skinning an animal.
Yeah, she did that up to her 9th month of pregnancy.
Wow.
Wow.
So
you never know that could become very useful here in the future, man.
You never know. You never know.
But something was stirring within me. My guitar had been locked away, my songs, my life that I'd grown up knowing, that the thing that gave me security. I was now in another world or another realm of reality that wasn't my thing. And so they could see that on my face and in my lack of effort toward building this life. And so eventually, it came to a point where 2 of the individuals became the leaders of this communal system. And anything that was contrary to who they were, what they said, was kind of looked at as disobedience to God. Now that's where it becomes cultish, because now you're listening to men who are actually acting as the Holy Spirit. And that's just wrong. We should have recognized it, but you've given up everything. Some people have sold homes, and everything now is on the table. So if you say that this might have been a wrong turn back down the road, now you're saying that God didn't lead us correctly, or we heard wrong, and so we tried to abide. And I went away fasting and praying. I said, Lord, I don't know. I just don't like this. I want to go back to Egypt if this is living in a Christ-centered life, because it really wasn't Christ-centered. But eventually, these guys said, if you don't get yourself together, we're gonna ask you to leave. And it came to a point where, they'd already asked one guy, and then another family. They didn't ask him; they told him, "Get out of here." But excommunication is a rough thing.
Yeah, you were excommunicated, right?
I was. The day came where they said, "You need to leave." Okay, drum roll, please. But your family needs to remain with us.
Ooh.
So I thought, well, a couple days away on the road, going to no man's land, I can handle that. But my wife and kids took me down to the Greyhound bus station, and I just remember looking at the bus, wondering where on earth was I going and what was I going to do. I had nowhere else to go. I was essentially homeless. I ended up in Tonasket, 50 miles away, and I got off the bus, and I had the green army bag and my worn-out Bible, and I fell to the ground. I just collapsed on my hands and knees and wept like somebody just died. And once the bus was gone and no more sound, and my eyes were clearing, I looked up, and there was a Bible bookstore. Mind you, I was warned, don't associate with other Christians. You'll surely infect them too. So here I am thinking that these guys were speaking the word of God. That's why it becomes cultish, because now we're listening to men and not to God. Mm-hmm. And I went to that bookstore, that Bible bookstore, and I said to the lady, I need a place to stay for the night, thinking that maybe I'd get some communication that, come on home. She called a guy named Hutch. Hutch, I think there's a young man over here that could use your help. And so it wasn't 8 minutes, 10 minutes. An old battered Ford pickup truck pulls up out front. Hutch has got out of the truck. Are you Michael Farley? Yes, sir. Come with me. His jeans were tattered and his beard was longer than mine. I looked like I was something out of a survival movie. But we drove down the road to his homeless shelter. Homeless shelter. And out front were all sorts of nationalities. And they were all waiting for the dinner bell, I guess, because that's where you go when you're homeless. And we took the tour of his place, and he said, there's the kitchen over there, which smelled really good, by the way. And there was some bedrooms and dining room. And he says, there's really no beds left, but you could probably sleep with old drunk Bill under the dining room table. After a while, a couple of days, he's starting to talk to me and say, you know what? You're not like these people. You're not on drugs. You're not drunk. You're not one of those. He says, in fact, could you help us hang some drywall? And within a day or two, I had my own room. Now I'm living with the homeless people. Nice. One of the residents, or one of the visitors, took me on a journey down the tracks, and he says, this is where I live. These are my people. He says, I'm called to these people. Nice. And so over there to KFC, there was a gang of about 6 guys coming toward us. He says, listen, you don't know their language. I do. They're going to offer you some chicken. Don't refuse it. And they just pulled it out of the trash bin. So here they come with their KFC, and they hand me a half-eaten piece of KFC. And I said, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I probably looked like one of them. I dusted off the bugs, and we had some dinner with these guys. Wow. Then we head down the tracks a little further, and this gang of guys come at us with knives, ready to poke us and take us for all that we had, which was nothing. We ran as fast as our legs could carry us, and the next group of people, there was a woman screaming at the top of her lungs, help me, I'm dying, help me, somebody's got to help me. And her buddies, they were laying on a pallet on some dirty sleeping bags. They turned their heads like that, like they've heard it before. And my buddy, he says, yeah, they see this all the time. She's not dying. She's just going through withdrawals or something. we got back to the shelter, and as soon as we did, this guy comes running up at us, charging with a face that looked like looks could kill. And he looks at me and he says, "You're not one of us. What are you doing here? We know who you are. You need to leave right away." And I thought, oh boy. I told my buddy, I think I just encountered a demon. He says, "You did. They live out here. They live with us. They live with these people." So that was my homeless stint.
Wow.
I mean, kind of, but then I went to the Amish community, and from there, I got a letter that said, no more communication with your wife. She's having challenges mentally, psychologically, and every time you write to her, she goes deeper into the funk. So they had been reading each of her letters, and then they would translate them and say, you know what, this can't mean that. He's obviously a sorcerer. He's obviously a liar, and whatever. So that's when they said, we're cutting off all communication. So now I knew I wasn't going to be going back home anytime soon. So I headed south to my dad's house. Remember, he's the one that abused Mom. He's the one that was drunk every night. He's the one that turned the table over with all the food on it because he didn't like the way the pork chops were cooked. And he's the one where the police came, and it was just that's the guy. And so he came pick me up, and from that point, I got it. I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, but he said, these people are doing you wrong. If you love your wife and kids so much, and they're holding them against your will, we're going to get in my pickup truck tomorrow. We're going to go up there. I'm going to take my shotgun. We're going to get your family out of there, and we're going to blow the hell out of the place. That's what he told me.
Nice.
I'm
sorry. Yes, he had everything was crappy about it, but in that moment when you needed him, in that moment when you were struggling, in that moment where nothing is making sense and your family needs you, he stepped up to the plate and said, hey. That's actually really cool, even redemptive in a lot of ways. But you have a person out there, Lee First Baptist Church. I've heard Michael's testimony before. Still riveting. So, hi out there to Lee First Baptist Church.
Welcome, my friend.
And Dan wants you to know that that's the point of the interview, Michael, for you to do the talking.
Yeah. So we appreciate it.
You wonder how I got the family back.
I do. And not only got the family back, but then you went to Santa Barbara after that, correct?
Right. I called my friend, Pastor Dan. And, actually, I called this gal that had been kicked out before me. And we were told not to associate with anybody, former members and or Christians. And so when I called her, which was a hard thing to do, I was literally whispering on the phone, "Hey, how you doing?" Like almost as if they were spying on me. And it was that kind of an intense control that they had over your life. But anyway, we got to talking, and she connected me with this person and this person and then Pastor Dan says, you need to get down here right away to Santa Barbara. I got on the bus the next day. And when he opened his door to me, he got me at the bus station, but when I walked into their house, there was a sense of normalcy. And every mile that I got from that communal situation, peace was overwhelming me, reality, life. And I, again, collapsed on the floor in his arms. He says, it's okay. You're going to be all right. This is not good, but we're going to make it. We're going to make it right. And from that point, we had to get back in touch. There was no phones in the day, no power up there or anything like that. So he and his wife wrote letters, and those letters were really poignant. And they specified from Ezekiel, because you have trampled the grass or the feed of the sheep and muddied the waters, the Lord your God will remove them from you. In other words, God is going to destroy that communal situation. They didn't like that at all. So they shook their fists at the sky and said, if we're not doing the right thing, and we have made this a communal thing, a idol, show us. That night, a storm came so heavy through that valley that it ripped the roof off the place, ripped the sides off the place, destroyed the entire garden, and killed the firstborn calf.
Wow.
Wow. There's a message.
Yeah. They couldn't get the 17 miles down to the nearest payphone fast enough. And they took Kathy. She said she'd been locked in. She hadn't been able to get off the property for a couple of months. So they call me at work, and I'm working now at a plant nursery. The environment of those flowers and the smells and normal customers and church and people. And I was breathing deeply again and taking in fresh air of Santa Barbara, the ocean and the mountains. And I was becoming my old self. Anyway, they called me. Can I come to the phone? And I did. And they were begging me. We see the error of our ways. Please, please, please come back home. We know what to do now. We know where we went wrong. There was silence for a second. And I said, get my wife and kids on the next airplane or the next vehicle out of that place by tomorrow. And they did. They gave her $100. They gave her the van. And she traveled 1,100 miles on that and got back to Santa Barbara, where she said every mile she traveled, she breathed deeper and she felt the peace of God coming over her and the freedom that she once knew. And it was time to hook up with Daddy. That's what she told the kids. And they did. And that's where the greatest miracles of our life began to form.
Mm-hmm. So that must have been hard on your kids, being separated like that and being told that you were bad.
I don't know if they knew that part. I don't think that was conveyed to them. Being as young as they were, they might have thought Dad's traveling, But they could see in my wife the difficulty that she had psychologically, spiritually, emotionally. It was tearing her to pieces because they would read those letters and translate them into their language. In fact, the last letter, she wrote it, but they spoke it. It said something to the effect of, if you have any sense of joy out there where you are, it's not from God, because you're ripping us to shreds out here in this community. Mm. And you need to get your life back together with God and get back home. They were feeding her what to say. Mm-hmm. And if you read in this book, I go into more details as to what those letters say. But it was tough for her. It had to be the toughest moments of her life. She said it was. Because here she was conveying these messages in her writing, but not her words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another question from one of our listeners, your relationship with Kathy, let me show you. Your relationship with Kathy was one of the most beautiful threads in the book. How did your love survive everything that life threw at you?
There's a chapter in the back of the book about us, and people might ask, how have you been together 58 years? And sometimes I jokingly say, well, I said, if you ever threaten to leave me, I'm going with you. But that's not good enough of an answer. The solid belief that we've had in each other from the beginning, the solid core belief that she is just who God made her to be. I am just who God made me to be. And along the path, we're chipping away at things that aren't quite right. We're becoming us. We weren't the sum total of us, but we knew that we knew that we knew. I don't know whether it was through marriage counseling or whatever, but that we're not done yet. God's not done with us yet. So if she said at 12 years old, she saw Kathy Rigby. I took her on our first date. She said, Kathy Rigby was a world famous gymnast. She said, I was born to do that. Now, I never disputed that fact. In fact, the next week, she convinced her parents to give her adagio private, ballet private, and gymnastics private. She ended up becoming number one in all-around championships in all of LA. And then she went on from there to teach and mentor girls for the next 40 years.
Wow.
How she did that, I mean, so for me, allowing her to be her was a real key to longevity, and not judging her for who she wasn't. I don't think we're smart enough to know really what all that, the all ins and outs and whys and wherefores of that. But the next date I took her on was to see Jimi Hendrix in concert.
Nice.
I looked at her and I said, that's what I want to do. And from that point on, the Lord opened those doors so I could travel nationally and internationally. And it was an amazing thing that this gift that God allowed me on the guitar would open so many doors and ultimately use it for his glory. Again, one of my favorite passages, what do we have that he didn't give us? And all good and perfect gifts come from above. So I recognize that, and she recognizes that. And when she wants to add 10 more chickens, and if she wants to go out and get a dump truck full of dirt for the garden, or the Amazon truck loads us up or more than the table can hold, I don't dispute what she's doing or how she's spending. I believe in her. And I also say to myself, we must be doing pretty darn good.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You often talk about miraculous events. And what are your miraculous events?
We were getting settled in Santa Barbara, and I was at that nursery. And one of the first miracles happened right there at Katashi Nursery. I was being instructed on how to use the machinery, and I was deeply in love with Jesus, deeply grateful for what he had done for us, deeply grateful for the home we have and where we live and what we're doing. And this young man, the manager, or the assistant manager, was training me how to use this machine, turned it on and was talking. And it was about 10 seconds in that his voice turned off. I no longer heard his words, and I no longer heard the machine. This wave of God's presence came over me and said, I need you to talk to this young man about his sexuality and wrong choices that he's making in life. I love him, and I've got a plan for him. And all of a sudden, the lights came back on. I go, whoa, what just happened? It was like Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. Go up to that chariot. I went to that chariot. And Philip, the guy was reading Isaiah 53. I said, Scott, that's your name, right? Yes, sir. I've got a word from God for you, brother. I mean, I don't know if you're a brother, but God wants you to know that he loves you deeply, dearly. But he's displeased with some of the life choices you're making, in particular some of the relationships that you have. And he looked at me awestruck and said, I don't have to answer to anyone regarding my lifestyle choices. Who do you think you are? I said, bro, I'm just a messenger. I don't know you from Adam. How would I know, even if you are doing stuff like that, if God didn't share it with me? So it was a couple months later, he come in clutching his Bible under his hand, and his life had been transformed. And so beyond that, I was playing guitar at the worship team at the Vineyard Church, and I had stopped into a music store and was playing guitar in the corner over there, an electric guitar, and I was wailing on that thing. I don't think I was showing up. I think I was just revisiting the life that I loved. and what I knew how to do so well. And a crowd gathered, and the manager approached me and said, would you like to teach for us? Well, this was another step in the right direction. But within a year, I had started a music school there, over 200 students, 20 teachers, and I started an assembly program like we were doing on the road, traveling around the city, going to the schools, and teaching with this other girl what musical instruments were and how they sounded. And I would act it out. I would play the banjo and put on a corncob pipe, and I would act it out just like we did on the road. And it was quite a thing. And then I had the Yamaha French. Well, back up just a tad. Miracles. The owners of that store said we're selling. And they sold it to a younger young man, some young guys, and they said, we're going to go ahead and take the store down to Santa Barbara proper and out of Goleta, and we're going to liquidate the piano division. I'd already been trained 13 weeks at Dale Carnegie. The Yamaha corporations trained me, and it's like I didn't feel right about leaving the piano life behind. And I was buying and selling and learning so much. I said, no, you can't do that. They said, we have to do it. There's no room down there for a piano division. So I said, give me some time. I used to pray around Lake Los Caneros there in Santa Barbara. Beautiful, beautiful reservoir and forests. And I brought that before the Lord in fasting and prayer. And I said, what am I going to do? And the scripture came to me so clearly out of the blue. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. There is nothing too difficult for me. I said, okay, all right. I'll buy the place. And I didn't have any money. We had probably had $20 in the bank, and they paid me $12 an hour. I had no rich relatives. And the guys knew that. So when the owner took me to lunch, I said, Scott, you got to give me a week. He says, Michael, why drag it out? We know it's going to close down. And so within that week, the sound man at church says, Michael, you got an opportunity to buy this business? Well, yes, I do, Brad. He says, let me write you a business plan. I said, thanks, because I don't even know what one looks like. And then I was closing the store up on Saturday, and somebody calls. I reluctantly answered it, and she says, Michael, you don't know me. My name is Georgia, and I heard that you want to buy a business. Yes, ma'am. She says, how much are you going to need? She later said, I thought you were going to ask for $25,000. But I said, well, $130,000 to start, and then $50,000 more for the inventory and the lease. There was silence on the phone. She says, can we meet after church? I'd like to see your business plan. So I didn't know what a business plan was. So her husband, a CPA, Brad, my sound guy, Kathy, and me, we all met upstairs at Brad's place. They look over the contract and the business plan. And Georgia says, we don't often understand the will and way of God, but we do know when he speaks to our hearts. She says, that money will be in your bank account on Tuesday. And then with afterthought, she says, oh, by the way, this is not a loan. There's no repayment. There's no interest. This is a gift.
Wow.
So Michael's music was born.
Nice. Very nice. That's an unbelievably fantastic story. However, we don't have a whole lot of time left, and I really want you to share the story about your son. I think people need to hear this story, and I think as sad as it has led to other things.
Okay. All right. Thanks for bringing us back full circle. By the way, anybody that gets the book, that's by far not the only miracle that takes place. We're living in one now as I speak, but things with Micah got rougher and rougher. And he'd overdosed 8 times, was pronounced dead 3 times. we'd go to the hospital and find him looking like that. My wife would not leave his side. There she was, and he was practically. One night, these two guys came over. They're big dudes. One had his arms and the other one had his legs. They knocked on the door, and they said, "We found your son. He's in the gutter, and we don't think he's breathing. You better call 911 right now." So the paramedics came and revived him again, another time. And my goodness, he promised us after that he would get with the program. So he'd come out of the hospital. We had a place for him up in Tahoe for rehab. And we were leaving at 6 a.m. to drive him out there. He got up at 5 a.m, stole my brand new bicycle, and headed down the road again. So it went from bad to worse. Now he's in jail. Now he's robbing people. Now he's in people's homes. Now he's stealing things from his sister. I had to go to the pawn shops to find my musical gear and buy it back. It went from bad to worse, and it was ugly, ugly, ugly. Painful times. Absolutely painful. And we knew that the call was going to come. I mean, it even gets worse than this. But he went to Teen Challenge for 2 years and got straight. And that was so cool because now he's in leadership. So Teen Challenge says, well, why don't you guys come over here to England and tour the Teen Challenge circuit, and he can give his testimony. I would do a concert, and I thought, man, this is great. This is going to be our life. Wow, look at all the lives we're touching. So we get home from England, and he says to me one day, Dad, this is your thing. It's not mine. I'm very uncomfortable doing what we're doing. So he eventually got back with his friends. Now he's married to Tasha, and now we got 2 grandkids, and he's back on the streets. His wife breaks down the bathroom door, finds him in the bathroom with a needle in his arm, and just from bad to worse. We eventually moved. Tasha left and went south. I don't remember what he was doing, but we moved to Texas, where we are now, and we got the call one night that his son ran upstairs to see Dad because Dad came home from jail. And he ran back downstairs and said, Mommy, Daddy's asleep, but his eyes are open. When I tell that to the inmates in jail where I minister, they never want to do that to their own kids. It's a story and a legacy that Micah has left behind. He died that day, but his legacy lives on. And so I use his story to build on the lives of others and give them hope and encouragement. He didn't have that in Oregon. So in Texas, they've got guys like myself who want to dedicate themselves to inmates. People like my friend Yuri, who dedicate themselves to people in prison. And so on Tuesdays, I head to Kerrville, where all those floods were, and I go right into the jail, and it describes it pretty vividly in the book, but I'm seeing guys come to faith in Jesus pretty regularly. Last year alone, we baptized 130 in the jail.
Wow.
Nice.
And I don't think if it wasn't for Micah's life and choices that I would even be called to do that, because now I have a heart for these men. They are my son. They are my reason to give back to God. If I can, and authoring books, I didn't know I was going to be an author. I didn't know I was going to meet my friends, you, Susan, and Stephen, and that you were going to take me to the next level in this thing called authorship and launching these books. I'll be in Georgia next week, launching these books at the CPE, the Christian Products Expo. And so I almost feel like Moses in a sense. He didn't get his start till he was 80 at the burning bush.
Right.
Abraham didn't get his start till he was 75 and then waited till he was 100 to have his son. I guess I thought a lot earlier on that God was going to use me, and he did in some ways, but I feel like this opportunity I have now going forward is bigger and looms larger than anything that I have ever offered to God or people.
Well, then that brings me to my last question of the show here. At the start of the year, Susan and I made some resolutions to have more gratitude, to be grateful for things, to be grateful for the things the people we encounter, the lives that we touch. So, with that, what do you have gratitude for?
I'll tell you what I have gratitude for. You've heard about my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I have gratitude that the Lord never leaves us. He never forsakes us. As he said to Hagar when she was dying in the wilderness, I see you. I see you. Get up and do what I tell you. So I'm grateful to God for this season in my life where I know I'm being directed. And Jesus said, I do nothing unless I see the Father doing it. He says, I only want to be about my Father's business. When he was 12, he left his family and he says, Mom, Dad, didn't you know I had to be about my Father's business? 21 years later, he was hanging on a cross and he said, now it's finished. So at my ripe young age, I want to be able to say one day, Father, I did the best I could in your strength to live out the purpose that you had for my life. In Jesus' name.
That is amazing things to be grateful for. So before we go, is there anything you wish to share with our viewers about how they can get in contact with you, find out more about your books, and get educated on upcoming releases?
If I'm not mistaken, Susan, do we have a website coming up, the michaelleefarley.com?
As a matter of fact, we do. Have you taken a look at that website?
No, didn't know there was one. But
why don't you do that right now? Can you do you have access to be able to get on that website?
Right here.
Yeah, take a look.
michaelleefarley.com. That can. So that would be one area. The other one is this other book that Susan is going to graciously republish, but that is the JesusandMeProject.net. And she's going to give that a makeover like I've never even dreamed. Because I'm so happy with what she's doing, who she is, who she is in my life. It's just beautiful. All of you, Michael Lee Farley, .com. It's showing images, maybe even somebody that's not me, but there it is, the God who sees.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I would say to the people that are listening, and I will say to the people afterwards, go here and see what these fine folks have done in order to produce and revisit what we've been talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say.
And there is a reward for people that go on your website there, that they can take a look at your book. They get a sample. They will be able to download a sample of your book. They'll be able to sign up for your email list, newsletters, any other kinds of things that you'll be sending out, letting people know of book releases, places that you're going to be appearing and speaking. That will give you an opportunity to communicate with, all your followers. I know you have a bunch of followers.
Terry Walsh says, amen to God for how he takes our broken pieces and glorifies himself in every child, every season, every chapter.
Hi, Terry. She was a childhood friend and still is, but she's no longer a child. I still am.
Debbie is watching on Facebook.
Debbie, what a precious sister.
Right on.
Faithful girl.
Well, I want to thank you, Michael, for coming on to the Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement podcast today. Hang out in the lobby for a few moments. We're going to wrap up the show, and I will let all of our viewers and audience know how to find you. I'll put your website on the post, and we'll start building you up a following, and all your followers can help you grow, and we'll go from there, buddy.
And Susan, do you have any last words?
I just want to say I am just blessed that God sent you to me and has allowed me to work with you and help you get your books published and help other people begin to know who you are and your story of how much you love Jesus. It's just beautiful.
From your lips to his ears. I hope against hope that my life can reflect that. So thank you guys.
You're welcome. And hang out in the lobby for a few moments. We'll wrap up the show.
I'll hang out in the lobby.
There we go. All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be a good one.
He has had a life, that is for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
he has.
Reading everything about it.
Yeah, we didn't even get a chance. There are a lot of parts of his life that we didn't even touch on. So people who get the book, you're going to get even more than what we talked about this evening.
Yes, with more details into the stuff that we did get to talk about today. I mean, there's some funny stuff in there. There's some tragic stuff in there. There is growth. There is new discoveries. There is just... It's a very well-written memoir, and
it is.
Touches the lives of so many people who can relate with so many different instances in there. And I very highly recommend that you guys check out his book. It is on Amazon right now, and I will post it into the YouTube channel as well as the Facebook page.
Good.
Well, I want to thank you guys all for watching Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement podcast. We will have another episode next Sunday.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Yes,
subscribe to our channel, and then you will know when we're going to be on the air.
Absolutely subscribe. So check us out. And also this week we got put on Spotify. So we are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube. So anywhere where you get podcasts, we are now available there. Have an awesome week, everybody, and we will see you next Sunday.
Yep.
Ever dreamed of seeing your name on the cover of a book? As a book publisher, we understand the challenges of self-publishing. If you're lost in the process, wondering about illustrators, book coaches, or formatting issues, worry not. At Soul Sunshine, we're here to guide you. Let's turn your dream into reality. Contact us to get started.